Happy Easter, everyone! It's good to be back after our Holy Week celebration. I'm sure each one of us feels refreshed and energized. With the good news, Jesus is risen. The resurrection of Jesus for us is the assurance that evil in this world will not prosper. With a substantial report from Jan Pamatong and Hoover Kalokalamba, good job, congratulations. We were able to understand the problem of evil. Since time immemorial, human beings have battled with what is called the problem of theodicy, or the questions of God's existence in relation to the inexplicable suffering in this world. Because of the presence of evil and suffering, belief in the existence of God is questioned. For Epicurus, an ancient Greek philosopher, it is logically impossible for God and suffering to both exist. How can anyone believe in an all-powerful, all-knowing, and perfectly good God in the presence of evil? If there is evil in the world, therefore God does not exist. For St. Augustine, a theologian and philosopher and the Bishop of Hippo, evil does not exist. Evil has to be understood as a privation of good. God is perfectly good and everything He created. And when there is the loss of good, when good is deprived, then enters evil. When someone says something as evil, it means it lacks goodness. And using the doctrine of the fall of man, St. Augustine explained, evil or the privation of good is brought about by the disobedience of human beings. The source of evil is in the exercise of free will. When we turn away from what is good, we produce evil. So evil could not come from God, who is all good, but it comes from the choices we make out of the exercise of our free will. John Hick, a British philosopher, developed his Arenian soul-making theodicy when he argued that God allows evil and suffering in the world so that we can develop virtues. If God is always watching us, we would behave out of fear and not virtue. Just like in the seminary formation, if formators constantly monitor the seminarians, we will produce priests with a good boy image. We want future priests not in love with their image, but in love with God and His church. A world without problems, or a seminary formation free from difficulties and hardships, will produce priests who will be happy-go-lucky, unable to respond to greater challenges. If we wish to grow morally and spiritually, we must welcome difficulties. So this means in St. John Paul II College Seminary, we welcome hard work, especially in our academic life. With the thoughts of Bay C. Johnson, an anonymous author, we might agree that suffering is necessary for virtues. Evil may serve as a means to purify our choices. Our bad choices will lead to moral development. That is why we don't justify our mistakes. Like we rationalize, I have no choice but to accept money from politicians. All excuses do not make us better persons. Bad actions are necessarily painful, but we grow from our bad choices, especially when we take responsibility. But the argument that God allows suffering so we can develop humility is open to objections. Free will defense is also used to explain why evil exists. God gives us the power to make choices. And as a result of free will, evil enters and prospers. With free choice, there is no guarantee people will choose what is right. But there are two forms of evil. natural evil and moral evil. It is true for moral evil. We are responsible for our bad choices, but natural disasters cannot be attributed to free will. But still others can argue that floods, earthquakes may be caused by immoral actions of people. And lastly, we have Fyodor Dostoevsky, a Russian novelist. He framed the problem of evil in his novel, The Brothers Karamazov. This book is a beautiful masterpiece where we find intense suffering, debasement, and cruelty. But at the same time, we have beams of light to fix the world and experience healing. The brothers have different personalities and contrasting worldviews. The book shows life is a suffering. Usually, the innocent pays the price, but despite the doubt, there is belief in love as a source of healing. In the face of suffering, there is the temptation to dismiss belief in God's existence. However, with our experience of a loving God who allowed Himself to become the victim of human evil, we believe we have the answer. God's answer to our questions about theodicy is not a convincing philosophical argument. God's answer is an event. God's incarnation in Jesus Christ. Happy Easter, everyone.